Hi, my name is Ashish, and in this video we will see Azure AD Identity Protection Policies. So what are Azure AD Identity Protection Policies? Or what is a risk policy? So we can configure a risk policy to decide how we want to identity protection to respond to a particular type of risk. Do we want to block or allow the access? Do we want to make users go through additional authentication before we allow access? Well, risk policies help us to respond to risk rapidly. So there is one different risk policies are available based on the type of identity risk. We have sign-in risk policy, then we have a user risk policy. So let me just quickly log on to the portal and take it from there. Okay, so what does a sign-in risk policy do? A sign-in risk policy scrutinizes every sign-in and gives it a risk score. This score indicates that the probability that the sign-in was attempted by the person whose credentials are used. We can decide which level of risk is acceptable by choosing a threshold of low, medium, or high. Based on the risk level, we'll choose whether to allow access, automatically block, or allow access only after additional requirements are met. For example, users might be asked to go through multi-factor authentication to remediate detected risks that are considered to be at the medium level. To enable sign-in risk policy, make sure users are registered for Azure AD multi-factor authentication before we apply this policy. So if you will go to the conditional policy or conditional access give you the ability to enforce access requirements when specific conditions occur. I am not getting it's in preview. Let me check it again. I'm sorry. Alright, the reason it is not working because you got to have Azure AD P2 license to use this conditional access policies, but I'll tell you the gist of it so that if you guys have a P2 license for Azure AD, you can do it. So we'll use a form to configure a sign-in risk policy in the Azure portal. We can specify the settings such as the user this policy should target, the conditions that must be met, and how and what to respond. Okay, so we'll say assignment is assigned to these set of users. Conditions, it is a sign-in risk, and I would mention the access to make sure that it requires multi-factor authentication, and then I can enforce a policy. So after a sign-in risk is identified, the user is asked to take action to remediate the risk. They are told what triggered the risk and what they need to provide to resolve the issue. For example, user might see a notification for Office 365 wherein they say we have detected something unusual about this sign-in. For example, you might be signing in from a new location, device, or an app. And then there are user risk policy. Here, the identity protection learns the user's normal behavioral patterns. Identity protection then uses this knowledge to calculate the likely risk that the user's identity was compromised. Based on the risk, like admin can decide whether to allow the access, block it, or allow the access only after additional requirements are met. Now the users could, for example, be asked to change their password by using self-size password reset before they are allowed to access. Same way, we'll have a form to configure a user risk policy. I'll have the assignments that to which set of users this policy is assigned, the conditions and the controls. I can mention that they require a password change, and the impact would be the number of users impacted. And then after a risk is identified, users might get a message or a risk message that this account might be at risk. Then change your password or reset your password to mitigate that risk. Same way, we have multi-factor authentication registration policy. It adds a second layer of protection to users' identities. While with multi-factor authentication, the user has to go through an additional verification step after they successfully provide their username and password. I can enforce this setting by name. I can mention the name as multi-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication registration policy. It is assigned to all the users. The action would be to require Azure multi-factor authentication registration. After we configure an MFA registration policy, the user are asked to register when they sign in, and they say a notification that the organization needs more information to keep your account score. When you click next, you get an option to set up multi-factor authentication. So that is how the risks are detected with Azure AD identity protection policies. I hope this video was informative for all of you guys. If you have any further queries, please mention them in the comment section, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Have a good day.